We're getting into conversation now. This hour is all about young people, politics, what 2027 looks like. We've talked about the concerted, the political energy, the fever sort of, that we saw in 2024 and 2025, especially around the protests, the calls for change, for accountability, and then a sort of simmering down of the same energy. Of course, a very, very slow uptake of the voter registration process by young people across the country, and some other worrying things. So we have quite a number of young people joining us in studio and online. We're also live on X, so please feel free to join. NTV Kenya is the handle. You can see our X space right there. Request for the mic if you have anything to say, but we do have quite a number of young people in studio, beginning with, let me begin with online actually. We have Angel Mbuthia and Marvin Mabonga, who is Kimilili MP aspirant. We also have Wanja Maina joining us, and Amlioto will give you the mic should you request it at any point.
Yes.
So we have a number of the youth, of course, also present in the studio, and they come from various political parties, right? And we have a researcher as well who will introduce herself as researcher and tell us what she's been researching on. But let's just give the mic. I see, Brian, you have the mic, so introduce yourself. The question that we'd like you to answer as you introduce yourself is, the question we are asking is, are Kenya's youth ready for 2027? Right? That's the question. Are Kenya's youth ready for 2027? So, Brian, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. Which party you represent, but also tell us, are Kenya's youth ready? You have the mic.
Yes. Thank you so much, Latif and your team. I'm Brian Kipkorir from UDA Party. And for the first time, I think me being NTV is one of the things that I think it's also to make sure that at least at the end of the day, we tell the youths what they have to hear, at the same time to share our thoughts in terms of what the politics awaits for us here outside. So for me, I would say, whatever the case, for the young people, this year is a year where they have to embrace the political wokeness that will go beyond the outrage that we are seeing in 2024 and 2025, but something that is more sophisticated, that will carry the ideologies of this country, and also to ensure that we embrace all others' political views, so as also to ensure that whatever the kind of expression as a young person, we really align itself to the all nationalistic values that we hold as a young people. And because we must rise beyond the tribal lines, and to make sure that as the young people, it's very important that we consider the whole sophisticatedness of political wokeness in terms of whether we want the country that moves forward or we want the country that still backstabs itself. But I know in every young person, ambition and dream is that to see a country that is progressively and very positive in terms of ensuring even the young people acquire the jobs and even live the better life that they wish to. So that's my submission.
All right. Does anybody else share the same view that there's a preparedness? You can just, if you have the mic, introduce yourself and tell us whether young people are prepared for 2027. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Leonia Roslin from the Orange Democratic Movement, and I'm currently the chairperson of Young Captains. And I think I would urge the media houses to visit Nyanza, because there's something happening in Nyanza. There is high voter registration in areas of Kisumu, especially areas of Homa Bay, some parts of Siaya. So ningewaomba sana, you visit these areas and see the way leaders are also engaging with the grassroots mobilizers to encourage people to go and register as voters. Yes, we are seeing other regions, the voter registration as far as young people are concerned is low. That means we have to do something. But leaders need to know that they also have a responsibility to lure people, if need be, to go outside and register as voters. And if I'll say anything to my fellow young people, is that in 2027, things won't be as normal as they have thought they will be, because Raila Amolo Odinga, who has been the fighter of human rights, is not there. Who has been the only person speaking against police brutality, is not there. And so if you'll go to protest when you have not gone on the ballot box, to cast your vote, even if the person will be elected is not the person you will have voted for, then you will not have the legitimacy to go on the streets and maybe agitate on anything. This is just the truth of the matter, and people have to come to this realization as early as possible, that if you not go outside to vote, it is even your parent who will be telling you there is no business of you going on the streets. But if you go outside and vote, even if the person you voted for didn't win the ballot, you'll have the legitimacy to stand and say, I wanted to vote for person X because I knew they will do something for education, and so I'm asking person Y to do something for education. And our young people must understand that the power lies in their hands.
Okay. And in the ballot.
I want to ask you, Alionya, so you say that you have witnessed a high voter registration turnout in counties of Nyanza. What is driving that? What's making the youth come out to register?
I think one would be their leaders, and these are some of the grassroots leaders. ODM has very strong networks at the grassroots level. And I would even urge our leaders in Nairobi who are so privy of maybe appreciating the privilege they have to come on TV and talk, the privilege and the social following they have on social media, that they should realize that ODM has grassroots networks, and it's these grassroots networks that are making people to go outside and register. You find community leaders, people maybe leading CBOs, people leading NGOs that talk about youth issues and women issues in the societies, the community, the chamas. They are sitting together and realizing, my children have not registered as voters. What can we do? They are even organizing on how people can get transport to go and register. They're even talking to IEBC officials to go closer to where people are. So I am calling on all leaders in other regions, if you can do this networking, because you cannot do it alone, but there's a boda chairman who can help you to know who has registered as a voter and who has not registered as a voter. So I think it's the network and the collaboration between the politicians in Nyanza and some of the opinion shapers, the wazee wa kijiji, the boda chairman, and in the markets, those mamambogas who have the...
So there's a lot of influence and mobilization.
Yes.
You are the head of the ODM Young Captains. I'll come and ask you, so why not in the other ODM zones? I mean, ODM is a national party, so why not across the country? But first, let's give the mic to someone else. Let's hear what they say.
Let me just answer that, because as you were interviewing Caswell, I realized you mentioned I've even seen on your social media handles, NTV has reported that ODM is crying that UDA is infiltrating our zones. And you have quoted in the morning Senator Ososi. So me as an ODM member, I ask myself, instead of Senator Ososi coming on TV to say that UDA is infiltrating our zones, what are you doing as a leader in Vihiga County to ensure that our people are not taken by other political parties? So it is the genuinity of leaders in Nyanza regions who have realized that, Baba is not there, who used to make people to go outside and vote. So we have to do something to make people realize that you have to elect your MCA who will bring resources closer to you. You have to elect your senator who will bring resources closer to you. You have to elect your governor. So it is that narrative driving the force of high number registration in Nyanza. And it is up to other leaders to realize that even if more young people register as voters, don't look at it as a threat.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's hold it there. We'll come back and explore that a little bit more. But yes, you wanted to speak.
Yeah. Happy New Year to all of you. My name is Marco Uko. I work as a youth affairs advisor currently to PS Raymond Omolo, and default makes me as a member of the UDA party. So I will say just three things. One is that as we look at the preparedness levels of youth towards 2027, we must look at it in a binary way. One is the quantitative approach, and two is the qualitative approach towards it. The quantitative approach is all that you hear, the nice things, the generic things, we are 8.8 million, we are registering, as a force multiplier, whether it's in the social media space, etc., etc. Then there's the qualitative approach on how you look at this. Then if we do talk about the youths making about 40% of the registered votes, do we see them register in the current ongoing IBC registration? Of course, there is a national psychic about Kenyans that they love doing things as a last minute, and probably we'll see most of them probably turning out to register as voters when it is the time is due. Secondly, it takes a lot of mental dexterity to normally have to read the political coffee of what is going to happen in a certain election cycle. So, for example, in the 2027 election, in my own assessment, I think most young people, especially even the most youthful leadership, popular youthful leadership, like guys like Babu Wino and Sifuna, they have not read the political coffee right. And I think they are still leaning to the populist politics. Those who have read the political coffee right know that the 2027 election won't be merely about populist. It will more centered around issue-based. It will be centered around the employment issue. And that's why I think President Ruto is leaning towards the Singapore thing and, character characterized Ndindi Nyoro who have understood. And thirdly, I would want to say this. The more things change, the more things still remain the same. We'll say all these beautiful things, but the fundamentalism is that in 2027, our elections, even amongst young people, will still be tribally based.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jane Jerry Irungu. I'm an MCA aspirant for Gitugi Ward. It's in Murang'a County, and I'm a member of DCP under the leadership of His Excellency, the legitimate Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. And I would love to pose a question before I answer the first question that you asked. Are the youth ready? So, to all of us, do the dogs decide to eat bones over meat, or do they eat bones because they were not at the table of making that decision? So,
Second one.
yeah, the reason as why the dogs eat bones is because they are not at the table where the decision of what they are going to eat is being made. And for the longest time in this country, the youth of this nation have been treated as dogs. And this time round, we are more than ready. We have seen the youth come up, taking up political spaces, joining political parties. And this shows that there is a clear clarion call to all youth to join political parties and to shape the leadership of this nation.
Jen, from what you see across the country, as a member of DCP, and also just from your own area of Murang'a and where you want to vie, what do you see that demonstrates that the youth are ready for 2027? And is it any different from 2022?
So, yes, I can confirm that the youths are ready. And from my region, there have been massive voters registration that has been driven by our youth coordinator. That is from the DCP party. So with that, it shows that the youth are ready to shape up the leadership that is coming in 2027, because they are taking that initiative to register as voters. And we are even going to schools to register, universities to register the people from there, because we realize if we don't take the mandate to decentralize the voters registration, then nobody else will.
Hi everyone, my name is Wairimu Gathimba. I am a researcher within Kenya's social justice movement. And I find the question of whether the youth are ready to participate in the 2027 politics a rather funny, interesting one, because I think essentially what is being asked of us is if we're ready to take part in a process that even looking, the issue of low voter turnout is not a new one. The 2022 elections were actually referred to by analysts such as Nanjala, Nyabola as the most boring elections. And this was because the youth didn't show up because they didn't see any leader coming out who felt like representative or true to their interest. And so, when you ask me if I am ready for the 2027 elections, I feel like you're asking me if I'm ready to finally agree to something I have long since rejected, which is actually what culminated in the protest beginning 2024. Because the protest and the movement, the subsequent movement was born out of this moment, this long standing or the gradual piling up of regressive taxation to a point where, we just got to a point where we're like, we can't do this anymore. And we have not seen any change since then. What I see even with my fellow young comrades here is a bit of political opportunism. It's, people aligning themselves to whatever party they're able to align themselves to. And honestly, I don't even judge them that much. People need to survive or whatever.
But does it concern you? Is it something?
It does concern me. It does concern me, actually. And today, I find myself at, honestly, a rather cynical position. And the thing that actually comes to mind is the 2020 protest in Nigeria, the NSAS moment, and how, the youth came out, like we saw in Kenya. Mariam actually at the beginning, the sort of opening monologue to this session, you talk about how protests came and simmered down, and they didn't just simmer down. There was violent repression that actually caused this protest to simmer down and made so many of us realize that our lives were at stake. So, we have to take a step back, re-strategize, rethink what to do, how to participate, because the 2027 elections, to use Gen Z terms, are not giving. I can't see anything that really appeals to me at this point in time.
Okay, so let's re-angle this question, all right? So there's the perception that you've presented here, which is actually very good and valid. When the youth came out to raise their voice and to protest in 2024, they were raising issues about governance. And there was a realization that, yes, governance also goes into leadership. Now, fact of the matter is that there's going to be an election in 2027, which will impact governance for the next 5 years. Now, the question is, are the youth ready to whether impact the governance that comes in 2027, after 2027, in whatever way, whether they want to participate and get into the office themselves, or whether they want to then elect those that they think are good, or whether they want to stay at home and not participate at all. But in it, they are ready to stay at home or they are ready to participate. Which is which?
Honestly, I anticipate a continuation in the same low voter turnout, registration turnout we've been seeing so far. And, you know, I didn't finish my statement earlier about the 2020 protest in Nigeria and, you know, in the aftermath with the continued disillusionment. In fact, I feel like disillusionment gets worse after protests because before that, so many of us, for the 2024 protest, that was our first time going out to the streets. So you do that from a hopeful place. You're going out to the streets with the belief that, okay, maybe if I go out there, engage in those tear gas running battles, this will communicate something to the state. Yeah, and we might see some change. But in the aftermath of that, if what you see is actually violent repression, you get even more disillusioned. And that's what I think like we saw in a place like Nigeria. So in the aftermath, actually, we've seen, they call it Japa, like this mass exodus of the young people. You know, people just going out, trying to find better fortunes elsewhere. And I personally, at the level I'm at, I have so many friends, people who've gone out to work in the Gulf. Like, there's that disconnect. I really anticipate just a continuation in the same direction.
Just before you come, we'll come back and talk about some of the valid points you've raised. I just want us before the break to hear from our other panelists, your thoughts. The conversation that we just had. You've spoken already, haven't you?
Brian, yes.
Oh, wow, look at me. But Kazmal is right here. React to what your peers have said in a minute, just before we go back.
So I'll make this short. My name is Kazmal Makoure. I'm a delegate of the Orange Democratic Movement and the founder and convener of the Broad-Based Youth Forum. The front intends to bolster support for President William Ruto's re-election in 2027 based on the realization that political problems require political solutions. I'm saying this having led protests in 2021 against the lockdown then and the Hospitality and Entertainment Workers Alliance. But I have looked at the political landscape after leading such a massive, such a massive protest in 2021. In fact, Latif interviewed me about that. In 2022, we missed out on the election cycle. I have realized that boycotting an election is not an effective way of bringing about systemic change in our country. Therefore, the reason why I will bolster support for President William Ruto is so that more young voices can be at the decision-making table. Because if I do not do it, we will have opportunistic characters like my Secretary General, Bwana Sifuna, who will claim to speak for the youth and go and sell them to people who do not have the youth's best interests at heart. So we are saying that we agree that the Kenyan project as it is might not be perfect, but as young people, we will participate starting today so that we will say directly, instead of you saying, well, Kazmal ulituuza, now this time we are going to say that, Kazmal, we gave you this mandate, you took it and you said we are going here. What have you done with it? Because until we can have mandate and tenure, we cannot effectively achieve this. We've seen this through even partnerships, and I have to commend some of the civil servants. But a person like PS Raymond Omolo, for example, has led a drive that is like no other. When did we ever think that we would mop up 1.5 million votes in Luo Nyanza? These are part of the questions we're asking ourselves. And in this coming arithmetic, the young people must be at the heart of the political planning of our political infrastructure.
Let's take a break. We come back and continue. We also have many fixers joining us online on our X space. We know we have Wanja Maina, who will be speaking, Marvin Mabonga, who is also an aspirant in the next election. Angel Mbudia as well is an aspirant. They requested the mic, they're getting the mic. And other listeners who are joining us on our X space, if you'd like to get the mic and tell us, are the youth ready and what's your perspective of it? It's 29 minutes after 8. Time for that break. We are fixing the nation one conversation at a time on Nation FM, on NTV, on X Space, on YouTube. Back in a moment.
involve us. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We're having a digital baraza on young people. Are we ready for 2027? That's the question of the day. And we've gotten varying views from our young members in studio. And we want to go on to the digital space now and get into it with Angel Mbuthia, as well as Wanja Maina and Marvin Mabongo. What are your views as far as young people, the level of preparedness for 2027, the sort of apathy around voter registration, and all the things that have been said by us in studio? Let's start with, who has the mic? I think it's Wanja Maina. Yeah.
Wanja, just introduce yourself and then tell us what you do and your perspective on this. Are we able to get Wanja? Wanja, you have the mic? Or shall we try Marvin?
All right, let's give Marvin a try, or Angel Mbuthia as well. I see Wanja has muted her mic. Okay, let's give Angel the mic. Angel, good morning. Give us a brief intro and your thoughts on what we've been discussing as far as youth preparedness for 2027. Okay. Oh, they're not. No, they are speaking. Well, yeah, but we're not able. Yeah, because I can see from Twitter that they are speaking. But we'll just see if we can cross back over to them. But let's get back in studio. We'll come back to you, Angel, Marvin, and of course to Wanja to make sure we get to hear your views. But just for those of us in studio, I know we talked about this. What did you call it? Disillusionment about with what's happening, and I do agree with you. And actually, what I did mean was not that the protests simmered, but rather the political energy, right? This push for accountability, even on and offline. It just kind of went back to default mode. But I want to know if that energy now only exists in political spaces, because I can see from those who are members of political parties here, yeah, they're saying, you know what, we're galvanizing, we are doing what needs to be done, we're working with young people. But from you, a researcher, it's disillusionment. So are those two factions, quote unquote, or is one true and the other one a complete, complete fiction?
Yeah, so I want to just start my point from something Caswell said about political problems requiring political solutions. And I think that's true. And people have shown willingness to engage in the political process. Again, just to refer to the protest and the moment preceding them, we had record participation in public participation. People tried to make their voice known. But again, in the current political architecture of the country, just again to borrow from my friend here, Caswell, there seems to be, I guess, there's no people-centered, I guess, party or faction that people feel like they can align their interests with. Just last year, I'm not quite certain what public participation process that was for, but I remember Kimani once talking about how, even if young people, just because people participate doesn't mean, and just because the majority of the people talk about or reject or support a certain thing doesn't mean they're in the right. Well, that essentially is a rejection of our views.
Yeah,
so for me, this whole thing, just someone keep trying to tell me consistently, just participate in this process, just try to find something within this political architecture that is so clearly not for me. It's something I struggle to wrap my head around. And just talking about young people and, my friends here aligning themselves with DCP, with UDA, with ODM, whatever. At every such moment, every sort of revolutionary moment, for lack of a better word, they're always beneficiaries from that young current generation. And a person that actually comes to mind is our current president, and I feel like he was a beneficiary of the
Young Turks.
Yes, Young Turks. YK92 actually specifically. Yes, YK92 specifically. And that for lack of a better word, YK92 arose as a counter-insurgency sort of movement to the more radical demands made by the Young Turks and the rest of the university movement at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. The same thing is repeating itself. History has quite a way to repeat itself.
Let's take up on that. Europe. So this is essentially, is it really a push for change by those of you who are in political parties? A lot of others, and not just Wairimu, I think a lot of young people were sort of getting the sense that, and I'm not speaking broadly, just a few anecdotally, that if you are joining any political party right now, where political parties, there's a lack of public trust, they are the same ones who kind of engineer and enable a lot of the issues Kenyans have, then number one, you're a traitor, you're betraying us, and number three, to Wairimu's point, you're an opportunist. I want to hear from some of you whether you've heard that yourself, somebody coming and saying you've just betrayed young people, or whether there is a valid chance that your involvement in political party participation could yield change for young people in the country. Which one is it? Because there's truths-ish on both sides. Have you been told that you're a betrayer? If you have, tell us about that. Number two, do you truly believe your role being in a political party can yield change for Kenyans? Let's hear from those of you who are in parties.
I think I would go first because I come from the largest party in Africa and some parts of heaven now that Baba has gone there. And let me tell Kenyans this, that as a country, we have not yet embraced the importance of political parties. If we were like Tanzania, although Tanzania is not a good example to use right now, we need to have political parties have an ideology they live on, that even in the next election, these political parties will still be meaningful. One problem with our country, that we have attached political parties to individuals. That if today William Samoei Ruto is not contesting for the presidency, then UDA loses value. Yeah? That if today, because Raila is not there, then ODM loses value. I want Kenyans to traditionalize understanding the ideologies of a political party so that when that party takes power, you can force the party to live on its ideology. I strongly believe had ODM or had Baba won election in 2022, if anyone went on the protest, nobody would have died, because Baba has lived his life teaching people that people have the democratic right of going to the streets, of being heard, agitating in any way, and ensuring that at the end of the day, after they have agitated, people will sit down to listen to both sides and come to a conclusion. Yeah. So as a country, we are to blame. But as young people, I was telling my fellow young people the other day, sometimes in 2025, that this is the right time to join political parties. Usingoje kama hii ODM, usingoje kuingia ODM 2027 na utake kupatiwa nomination na udhanie utapatiwa. We will be there. In fact, you will find me there to tell you that you are not going to be given this ticket because you have not been there to defend the party, be it DCP. If you truly believe on the ideologies of DCP, join DCP now. If it is UDA, if you truly believe on the ideologies of UDA, join UDA now, so that any of these political parties, when they take power in 2027, will be able to look them in the eye and say, your manifesto said this and this and this. Why are you running away from the manifesto? And that is what took us to the streets in 2024, because people kept telling William Samoei Ruto, you said bottom up, but you can't feel it. And I've heard people saying, I think one of the panelists has said that, why is it that the agitation is no longer there, even on social media, etc. Do you know the answer to that question? It could only mean that William Samoei Ruto is doing something meaningful. But are we ready for that answer? We are not ready. We only feel that maybe young people are wameogopa. It is because probably the things they were agitating for in 2024 and 2025, some of them, he's trying to achieve them. So are we ready for that answer? If yes, then we need to ask ourselves, what else can we agitate for? And I want to say here categorically that the youthful leaders we have today are not genuine, because as of today, JSS teachers who are on internship last year, bado sahi wanaambiwa waende internship 2026. Honestly, you have been budgeting yourself with 15,000 last year, and then the government, you are sure because they employed others on permanent and pensionable, you are sure that in 2026 I'll be on permanent and pensionable and they'll be earning 40,000. Right now they have been left in limbo, and I dare say it is only Baba Raila Amolo Odinga who would have spoken on the issue of JSS, and William Samoei Ruto will be pushed to the wall to ensure that he looks for funds to pay these people. Sahi kila politician anaongelelea tu ile kitu inamfavor na amesahau JSS teachers watakuwa ni walimu wa watoto wetu frustrated because kama ulikuwa umeplan mwaka utakuwa na salary ya 40, it is not coming, and truth be told, if it does not come this 2026, 2027 it will not come because it is a political year. So these youthful leaders, they are not youthful at heart, they are not being genuine to the real issues affecting
which speaks to what Wairimu is saying. That's the disillusionment. Speaks to what Wairimu is saying, that just looking at it and saying, okay, yeah, we brought in new younger people, we brought in younger people. Same things are happening, so why should I participate in this whole thing?
And that's why I'm challenging her. I would really ask her to contest for any position, because we want her brain in parliament or in any county. Because if she continues complaining at the sides, then the narrative will continue.
We'll come back and ask her later what is the alternative to that. But yeah, you'll hold that for Wairimu and let us know. Yes, you can share your thoughts as well.
I have just 3 quick things to say. One, I feel like this exhaustion that people are generally feeling is because there is a wrong focus, especially amongst young people. I feel like when people join DCP, UDA, and all this, is that we are normally focusing on the presidential candidate. Of course, as Abraham Lincoln says, that's where the buck stops. But let's be very realistic and pragmatic around this. Even in the very, very unlikely scenario that President Ruto does not come back in 2027, the most relative alternative would be Kalonzo or all these people who have been in the game for the last 30 or 40 years. But we all know that President Ruto is going to be here till 2032. I think we should narrow the focus around creating a national network as young people. That as young people would embrace the idea of electing our fellow young people, so that we have over 300 members of parliament. We have 47, we have more than 30 senators who could, if we wanted to pass any money bill, if we wanted to impeach any president, even in the media spaces and all these dynamical spaces, we elect ourselves so that we are able to create a national network of leadership amongst young people, so that this political exhaustion that we have around, who is the presidential candidate, when it's more or less really obvious. The second thing I would want to say is this in response to your question. Never put the word politics, and especially in the Kenyan context, the word politics and morality in the same context. Everybody, and I will say this, in the political space, first of all, and this is a human bias, they have some self-interest. That's the truth. Even somebody like Sifuna and all these people, they're looking towards 2032 election. That's clearly for those who understand the game quite much. So first of all, the human bias is that all of us, even those who are sitting here, they have some self-interest. Secondly, now it can the idea of change, or it can come as a secondary need to that, after that self-interest, or a coincidence to that. But now how then we create an accountability? But now how then? But how then do we create?
On a good day.
Yes. No, not it comes as a coincidence that while you are pursuing your self-interest, there is that secondary need that you need to then work on. Then thirdly, I would want to say this, especially to my young panelists here. We should not correlate that there is synonymousness that if somebody is young is translative to effective leadership. No, I've always heard that we should elect young people in 27. We should elect, but even if you check, there's no synonymous to that. It's not that merely because you're young, you're going to be effective. No, we should ride on the idea that we want people who are effective. If you're young, the better, because by natural law of attrition, they'll have more time to effect whatever they want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I see the fact that you are just itching to go, Jane, but when you think about what Mark has said, do you agree that essentially, yes, it's political interest first, and coincidentally, bahati mzuri, maybe we align. Maybe what I, the voter, and you, the leader, wants, maybe.
In pursuit of my interests, I'll have delivered something that is of benefit to you.
Along the way.
And maybe felt like effecting a change. KCSE too. Yeah.
I think that's global.
Yeah, I totally agree with him, because political interest will always come first. And as a person who is aspiring for a position, that is why I'm agreeing with him, because I will have to see where my ambition will be upholded, and that is why I joined a political party. But before I answer the question that you asked, if this is a disillusionment, I would love to take you back to our maandamano in 2024. We started so well, and we came out as young people. We said we are Gen Zs, we are tribeless, we are partyless, and we are leaderless. But after some time, as we continued, our maandamano were infiltrated by goons. And this was because of that narrative of being partyless and leaderless, and that was a way of dividing us to show that these people are leaderless and they are doing things to, destroy the stability of this economy. And that is why I sat back and I realized as a young person and as a leader, I cannot only say that I'm going to come out and protest and expect something is going to happen. And now that the issue of goon has come into place, this is not going to work out. I must be in a position where I'm able to influence decisions. And that is how I decided to join a political party. So I strongly believe that being in a political party as a young person, as a young leader, gives you a space to champion your needs and also the needs of the young people of this nation.
Okay.
Thank you. I've had a lot with my friend, but I will respond to my friend here as a researcher and out on researching and finding out what is happening and distinguish between the truth and false, but at the same time subjecting their views based on what they find out and to relate to the reality of the days. So you say that some of us are beneficiaries of this kind of outrage that was seen in 2024. And I want to remind her that most of us were in these political parties before even demonstration, and we are still there, and we will be there. And even to our time when we become old, I think when our future will be beckoning, we'll still be in these political parties. At the same point, when it comes to delusional, I think that is a good thing. And a lot of young people are very delusional, and that is a fact, because there's a lot of fragmentation amongst the young people, because what kind of the values that they hold, what kind of ideologies that they're looking forward for. Because you find a young person, even nowadays, don't know the history of Kenya. Even the 6 individuals who were jailed in Kapenguria 6 is difficult to mention. And you're talking about changing this country, the country that you don't understand its history since the independence. So there's a lot of things that the young people have to embrace in terms of ideologically, at the same time to understand their country. Because when you're looking forward to change this country, there are things that you need to resonate with, because what are the realities of the challenges that we are suffering from, and what are the issues that maybe at some point God means that's why we are finding ourselves in this mess. So the young people need also to understand what is the things that are ailing this country, and what are the best alternative solutions that they can give. Because if a young person can come out and say, I'm vying as a president, but the question is, do you have the muscles? The muscles also comes in terms of, do you have the capacity to transform this country, whether to bring the policies that are very reasonable to the country? Because there are challenges that we ourselves as the young people, we see as very obvious, but it's not easy. Once you enter that corridors of power, there are issues like cartels that are there that have been beckoning this country's independence. And these are things that cannot be changed just anyhow. And because we understand that one of the way of influencing these policies is to make sure that we have elective posts for these young people who are really intentional about changing this country, to get into the parliament, to the county assemblies, to be governors, to be senators, and to be women rep. But a question is, are young people ready for that? Because most of the time when I transfer this country in political engagements within the young people, what I see is that the young people are willing. But the question is, are they in the same informative level as same as the one who are in the better urban areas? Because when we see in 2024, some of the young people who are in street, a majority of them in urban setups are very informative of what is going on. But when we go back there to Garissa, Taita, and even Busia, there's a lack of information of what's going on in this country. And that's something that we need to cure, because it is our responsibilities as the ambassadors of those who have stepped forward to understand what is going on in this country, to also enlighten our fellow young people, because we are the majority. But those majority, we are the silent majority. But at the same time, we are the majority who are ignorant of the fact that is what is going on in this country. So I'm encouraging the young people, particularly for those who want to step forward, who understand what is going on in this country, to step forward and at least enlighten the other young back of the young people, because the junk number of the young people are so ignorant of the fact that what is happening for this country. Because we see young people doing away with the things that I'm supposed to do with, in terms of whether they are educated enough, and they wish to see this change. But you cannot wish change in your bedroom. You cannot wish change when you are hearing some good news from the Nation FM in your matatu, and the same thinking, no, that's not right. But we understand the political processes is very open, and it is understandable, because we need to participate effectively. and meaningfully. Not just participating because my friend Korir is there, my friend Kasmuel is there. Because Kasmuel do this and that, I'm going to be with him. No, but understanding what you stand for. Because I felt at this point in 2024, if the young people was intentional on that street when they were demanding for their things, I'm sure they could have gained more than what we have gained. Because just dropping a finance bill was not a gain. It's something that, oh, okay, it's finance bill. Okay, let's drop it. Then what next? But if the young people could come out and say, our issue is corruption, before even dropping of the finance bill, we want to see this amendment of anti-corruption bill to see that those who have been, at any point, been their cases ongoing under the ESCC or even under the DCI investigation, we want to see this kind of the files coming out. We have seen governors being reprimanded to the prisons, and at some point they pay the bail because they have the money. But the question is, are we curing the corruption?
Have we dealt with the issue?
Yes, because
I completely see where you're going with this career, and looking come 2027, those below 35 are going to be the absolute majority in this country. Okay, and so when you're asking whether they are ready, it's not whether they are ready to cast a ballot, whether they're registered to cast to vote, whether they are ready to come out and present themselves as candidates. It's beyond that. It's whether you're ready to actually take over the mantle of leadership in whatever capacity as a young person. And just going by what Brian is saying, it's about the knowledge. Do you have the knowledge? Today's young people are different from William Ruto's young days in the 90s, and the access to information universally across the youth of the country. The youth of the country, the youth in what you've said, in Mandera, in Wajir, in Lamu, did not have as much access to information as the youth in Nairobi then. Today, it's a bit different. They have more access to information, even in the far-flung areas. We talk about how the youth today, at the border of Mandera County and Ethiopia, are on TikTok. And they're engaging with those in other parts of the country and actually globally. They have access to information. So what are you doing with that access to information? Are you engaging with it so that then you can say, even if I don't put myself out for election, but I know what I want, I know what I need, and I know what I'll be looking out for. I'm not hearing that conversation happening at all anywhere in any community. Even you guys, Kina Jenny, you're saying that the youth are ready. Just going to register because they've been mobilized by the party leadership to go and register, that actually is even a red flag.
And I know we have another hour, we're just going into a break, but I feel like there's certain things here that are trying to be reconciled. Number one, I do think young people did take to the streets to begin a journey to effect change in the country. It was co-opted, it was compromised, there was violence, and I think naturally, and I think it was Raymond who said it, naturally it makes you nervous. It's like, I'm going to go exercise my right to change things, and I could die.
I might not go back home.
I might not go back home. So reconciling that with sustaining the momentum to effect change, and then from what the panelists are saying is, yes, you can effect sustainable change by joining a political party. On the other side, you have young people saying, the same political party where people hired goons. And so I feel like I could sit as a young person right now, and I'm grappling with all those realities. Yes, I believe it's important to join a political party because, as everybody here has said, they're more likely, our panelists here today, to be able to influence and navigate change because they're in the political party. I don't know what courage they've gotten to join the political parties that exist. They've talked about it. She's talked about ODM is the party for the people. You've talked about DCP, UDA. A lot of other young people are like, I don't know that I can trust that I can effect change in a party that has hurt people like me. It's trying to reconcile those two truths. They can speak right now, they're probably like, just join a party. But there's people right now listening and saying, I don't know that that's the way to go. So maybe in the next hour, and Wairimu, the question was to you, what is the alternative?
What is the
They're
alternative?
saying, we are in political parties. We can effect change for young people like us. You're saying, essentially, they're beneficiaries of a system that has hurt, said young people. So what happens next? And I think,
apathy can't be the answer, right? So what is the alternative? I think that's a good place to pick it up from in the next hour. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation and TV. We'll be right back. Continue engaging with us. We'll hopefully get back on our X space and get to listen to Wanja and, of course, to Angel and to Marvin Mabongo on their views on this thing as well. Let's talk about young people. Are we ready for 2027? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. We'll be right back.
Europe would have come out to say, no, call him a dictator, call him, a despot and all these kind of things.
The UN would be having emergency
Oh,
meetings,
yes.
conventions.
The UN had an emergency meeting. Have you heard anything out of it?
No, nothing.
Right? So this is what even Martha Karua was saying yesterday.
Yeah.
It's about the rule of law, depending on who has written the law and who has determined that this is the right thing to do.
Yep.
I mean, it's the fakeness of the world. Maybe it's actually just segueing into what our conversation was, and Werim was saying it's the fakeness of even this country and the politics of it all. Saying, because we have an election in 2027, then we must participate. Why? If I don't feel like the rule book has been written properly,
Right.
those who wrote the rule
How do you
book...
play a game where you feel like the rules aren't fair? It's a great question to ask. Why are you participating in a game if you feel that the rules aren't fair, or if that the game is rigged against you? But then I think about like the voter apathy that we saw in 2022 by young people, by and large. I remember being in the line looking for someone close to my age, and like, hey, there's a problem. But then you look at the results and you're like,
So I would say
We're here.
participate, even if the game
Right.
is rigged. I think do your part. It sounds very cliche. It sounds like it's oversaid and overdone. Do your part, and then whatever you want to do after that, you can at least rest and say, you know what, I did my part, which I know can fall on deaf ears because people are still very disenfranchised. But do that part at least. I think.
We will hear from Wairimu. I mean, you've asked the question, so what's the alternative? Well, I mean, Wairimu, prepare yourself for that. But as well, Wanja and Angel and the others on X-Space who have the mic, and if you'd like the mic, please request the mic. We'll give you the mic. We'll hear from Wanja and Angel, but after Wairimu tells us the alternative.
right.
So sasa, so utaki participate, unataka?
Participate. Let's start there. Nasema mimi sitaki participate in the political parties represented here because they do not inspire a lot of trust in me, unfortunately. And yes, Kasmuel alikuwa amesema earlier, political problems require political solutions. I have always recognized that the solution is political organizing of some sort. That's why I'm part of the social justice movement. Yeah, and as is right now, my eyes are like set on whatever is unfolding, and I hope at some point to find something that speaks to me, speaks to my interests as a young woman in Kenya. Yeah. And in my own capacity, and I think there's also the reality of that building alternatives takes time. The reason ODM is able to go and to have these grassroots networks and get into whatever villages in Western is because they have money. These young people like myself who went to the streets in 2024 were underemployed, unemployed, surviving on whatever gig jobs. At some point, you do have to prioritize your survival because you still have to pay rent at the end of the month. So it's obviously going to take, I guess, a much longer time to build. Reforms do not come easy. I mean, even the Constitution that is allowing us to exercise these freedoms to go into the streets and to even request that our voices be heard, it came at the end of a decades-long struggle. So actually, I keep thinking there's one of my favorite papers in infrastructure, because I work in infrastructure research, is a paper that begins with the line, "This is a call to study boring things." So in the moment, as in my capacity as a researcher and just someone trying to be an active citizen, I am trying my best to study boring things. I am trying my best to understand the political economy of these things, to move beyond just blanket words like corruption, and I liked that in the protests in 2024, a lot of these issues started coming to the forefront, issues like debt, reading reports by, whatever, Oxfam towards the end of 2025 released a very good report on inequality. KHRC released another one on land and, calling for things like progressive land taxation. So currently I am trying to do that, and while also just sitting with the reality that it takes time to build an alternative. And I co-curate a podcast with a friend. The name of the podcast is A Certain Amount of Madness. We host town halls, actually right here in the middle of CBD. We had 2 last year, one with actually Senator Omtata, because he's one of the people who's put out a bid for I'm not quite sure, but yeah, he's put out a bid for like the presidential seat.
Yes.
So actually just getting to try and hear from these people to challenge their perspectives.
Okay.
The name of the town
So
hall
you're
was...
active.
I am active, for sure.
And you're ready.
Yeah.
So she said it's the parties represented here that don't speak to her.
Which I wonder what it will take at some point.
They don't have to. These ones don't have to speak
Exactly,
to you. I mean, we have 97 plus political parties registered in this country. I mean, we've got many. And I think, even what was said earlier, you don't have to join ODM, you don't have to join DCP, you don't have to join UDA, you don't have to join a political party. You can, stay as... There are those that see the value in joining a political party now. There are those that may not. However, how do you participate as an active citizen in the running of the country? Shall we go to the experts and try and see whether we can, this time hear from those that have joined on the experts? Wanja Maina, you have the mic. Let's see this time whether we can hear you, Wanja.
Hello.
Yes,
Good
go
morning.
ahead. Very good. Good morning.
Oh, finally.
Yes.
Excited. My name is Wanja Maina. I am a member of Jubilee Party and I am a Kenyan. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'll go straight to the point. Are the youth ready for the 2027 elections? Before I go to the issue of the 2027 elections, I just wanted to, because this is something I've heard, including the by-elections where people were accusing the Gen Z of not participating in the elections. I've always said that even not voting is a voting in itself. I mean, in the 2022 elections, if Raila got 7 million, Ruto got 7 million, and the other 7 million did not vote, we cannot just say that those 7 million are so detached and they don't care about their country. They were passing a message that we are so disillusioned and we know that our voice does not count. Then you ask yourself, back to the question, are Kenyan youth ready for the 2027? My issue is, there must be certain indicators and markers that will make us get ready. And the by-elections have been a very good litmus test. Hopefully, they will learn, these election officials, because as far as things are now, if elections were held today, I'll be very wary of going to my police station. Why? Because in Mbeere North, we saw people holding machetes and beating each other. In Malava, you saw a candidate, Seth Payako, who lost, crying in the police station because his people were beaten and his drivers were shot or something. I am of the view that the reason why some of us are not very ready, it is because of violence and we don't want to be beaten badly. So for us to answer whether we are ready, then other actors must also assure us that the process will be free and fair, the IEBC. Speaking of IEBC, since the new constitution of 2010, all the elections that we've had, especially the presidential elections, because the winner takes it all, have been litigated up to the Supreme Court. So one would ask, this IEBC, what is it that they keep getting wrong that the Kenyans and the political candidates believe that their victory is stolen in the ballot? You all remember the event of 2017 where the elections of a president were nullified. Other issues are important to note for me, and to say that the young people also hopefully will be engaging with the process, not only as voters, but also as people to be voted for. But then again, the political leaders, the people who are at the top of the ballot, or people we have heard a lot of statistics recently, these are the people who are more popular than others. For me, I feel like the ballot will not be about love. And I've always been accused by my friends, oh, Wanja, you hate Ruto. Oh, Wanja, you are too negative. And I usually tell them, there is nowhere in the constitution that I'm supposed to love Ruto. Because my engagement with the government is not a romantic engagement. It is an issue of a citizen engaging with the state. Therefore, it is a state-citizen relationship, and I hold them to account because they hold a social contract. The reason why I'll buy mandazi when I finish this call and I'll pay maybe 30 shillings is because the one who is selling to me has paid tax. And I've also paid tax in that way. So if we engage with our government, we are engaging not out of love or sentiment, but out of a broken social contract. A recent survey it should be Ipsos, Synovate, I think one of those big research companies, ask Kenyans, what are your big pain points? just towards December 2025, the Kenyans said that of all the things that are annoying them, there is the cost of living that is really high, issues of health, and issues of education. Speaking education, Latif, I can assure you that me and my family members have been very sad that we didn't enjoy Christmas because we have a child. I'm talking about a lived experience. I have a sister who did the 9th grade 10. I can tell you, Latif, out of experience, and I know you've seen it even in the media, increasingly Kenya is becoming a country where basic services are being privatized. For as long as you don't have money, if you have money, you'll take your child to a private education. If you have money, you'll take your child to a private healthcare. And you agree with me that even we saw on media that Kenyatta Hospital, patients are sleeping hungry. You know, it's so ugly that patients of a hospital, already you are sick and now you're sleeping hungry. So for me, I would say that when we are going to the ballot in 2027, it's not a matter of being ready at carrying an ID. We all have IDs for, okay, not all people, but what I'm saying is there are some major issues that will be in the ballot.
Okay.
You know, whenever I think some young people, and maybe if you could add for me a minute, even those who are in the studio, they are so overly excited to look like now they know Ruto more than most. They are now, even I've heard that ODM is bigger on earth than in heaven. For me, with a lot of respect to the views of others, I would say that, you know, for me, I would say that instead of focusing on sloganeering and perceiving the candidates in the ballot as if we have to love them, for me, I would say, what are the issues that will be in the ballot? I'm telling you, cost of living is really big. Issues of healthcare, issues of the education. My comrades wanasemanga wacha wainame lunch ipite because they are so broke. And therefore, for me, I would say that those are the issues that will be in the ballot. Okay. As a young Kenyan who is below 35, am I ready? Yes, I'm ready. Do I have to love the people in the ballot? No. As now, is the social contract broken? Yes. Okay. We shall meet in the ballot.
Thank you, Wanja. Let's hear from Angel Mbudia, who is also an official of Jubilee Party. Angel, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, and thank you for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me now.
We can.
Yes. Thank you. All right. I think that I would answer your question and say that, yes, the youth are ready for the 2027 election. However, there are a few gray areas, and they are very understandable because in June 25th in 2024, I think that the political class is the one that betrayed the movement of the youth. Immediately there was a handshake, and then every other thing changed in that conversation amongst the youth. And they still feel very much betrayed by the people they felt were their leaders at that time. And now they're wondering, we are asking them to join political parties, and they're wondering, are we going back to those same people that betrayed our cause earlier on? So I think that there's a lot of work we have to do as a political class, and I do agree that. My party leader has also been very vocal in terms of encouraging young people to take up their political space. And just as you highlighted, even the things that are going on globally, we'll see that the civic space in Kenya will continue to shrink because most of our partners who have been supporting the civic space will now be focusing on other things and putting their country first. And even when you look at Trump making those declarations, we should be very worried. We might think that this is a country, a nation that is half the world away, and maybe those things don't affect us, but they do in a very magnificent way. When we look at the President of the United States doing what he's doing today, that shows you that those who look at him as a role model right here at home, what they will have a free hand at doing. So I think the youth of Kenya have been the official opposition of the people of Kenya, and I think that we have a very real role to play, and I think that our message needs to continue being consistent. Let us not fear political parties. Political parties are spaces where you get into to shape them. They're shaped by the members of the political party system. Even what is going on in ODM, those who are speaking in ODM today were not speaking in ODM 10 years ago. They were fighting for their space even in ODM, even in Jubilee Party as well. Those who were in Jubilee Party 10 years ago, some have gone to even do other things. So political parties are vehicles that we must use and we need to use to shape our governance system because we are on our own. And even when we are pointing out on the existing current youth leaders that are shaping the political space, I would say they are doing a lot and they have a lot on their shoulders because when you look at members of parliament, 17 of them, as at the election of 2022, only 17 of them out of 290 are young people. So what are we saying to these 17 young people who are in the National Assembly? We have so much on they have so much on their shoulders. So in Kenya, when we look at our constitution in 2010 and we say 50+1 need to form government, I think that's the same case that applies for the young people of Kenya. If we want to change the tide, we cannot send one young person to parliament to represent our voices. It's going to be very difficult. And those who do not want to join political parties, I think you can take your time. There's still, we have about 600 days until the election, but at least make a decision before then. And even if you're not very politically averse, support a young person who will be running in your community, an MCA, help them campaign, go door to door with them, work with them in their journey. Make sure that their votes are not stolen in the primaries. Make sure that you protect their journey and help them advance their quest. Yep. Because a youth agenda is a Kenyan agenda. And I think that we can be able to do it together. We might seem as if there's so much backlash coming towards us. You know, government is already coming up with propaganda that young people are not registering as voters, young people are goons, young people are not married, young people are alcoholics, they are drug abusers, we are criminals, we are arsonists, we are terrorists. That is what the government of Kenya thinks of the youth. The government of Kenya hates two things, political parties and the youth of Kenya. So let us be very woke in this journey because we need to transform our country in 2027. We have a date with destiny. After that, I don't know where we'll be taking our placards to say, sisi kama vijana tumesema. But I think that we have a very realistic chance. We need to take over the governance space of Kenya. We have the opportunity, we have the brains, we have the might, we have the energy. And I think there's a serious chance that we have in 2027. Let us not let that go.
Angel, let me just dig a little into what you've just said. You know, the propaganda against young people. You've talked about young people aren't, showing up to register. Is that propaganda or is that just fact? Or is it fact that's then being weaponized to push a narrative and then, now further deepen like this voter registration apathy? Same to the issues around drug and alcohol abuse. Could it be factual, and it is factual, that we do have a problem with alcohol and drug abuse, but is it being weaponized, or do you think it's actual propaganda?
I think that when I say yes, the youth are very ready for 2027, but there are areas that are gray and the young people want to understand before they actually make a decision. Like when we are telling them that they need to register as voters, is the IEBC going to ensure that there's a free and fair election? These are things that now is the time to do. I don't think we are late to register as voters, because I went to my constituency office to help some colleagues of mine to register as voters, and every time we went there, we were told the systems were down. And we had to go back the next day. Even the next day, we would find the systems are still down. And this is in Kiambu County. So then they start asking, is it that in Nyanza, young people can register as voters, but in Kiambu, they are not able to register as voters because the systems are down? So these are some of the things that we'll be able to unpack this year in 2026 and see, are young people being locked out deliberately from registering as voters, or is it genuinely the systems were down? So I think there are some of these things that we need some time to be able to decipher. It is still very early to judge the youth and say that they have not registered as voters. But then again, even Wanja Maina has mentioned that in 2022, there were 7 million young people who did. There are 7 million people who did not turn out to register as voters, And it is very likely that 50% of that 7 million were young people. So there is also still a critical number of young people who are already in the voter register. But even as we are looking at registering another 6 million ahead of 2027, I think there's still time, and it is still very early to judge the youth in terms of whether they're registering as voters or not. That is why I look at government propagandists when they go on national television and say that the youth are saying Ruto must go, but they are not registered as voters. So you see, that is how they want to water down the movement of the youth in Kenya. And then they go on platforms in churches and start saying that they are terrorists. I mean, how do we accuse a young person for fighting for their freedom or fighting for accountability and justice and accuse them of treason or calling them arsonist and a terrorist? I think these are some of the narratives that the government of Kenya is really misplacing, tainting the youth as devils. So because even the English say that before you kill a dog, you give it a bad name. So they give the youth of Kenya a bad name so that anything they do is automatically bad for the people of Kenya, which is not the case.
Okay.
Conversation continues, and we're asking ourselves on the X Space and live on NTV and Nation FM, are the youth ready for 2027 election? And what is that kind of readiness looking like? Or what are the reasons why the youth may feel, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that conversation about 2027. Even it comes and goes, it doesn't really matter for me. We have a number of guests here in the studio, people who are joining us on X Space. If you'd like the mic on X Space, you can request, and Lioto is going to give you the mic, and we'll come back to you. People on YouTube are very, very eager. Many of them I see people who are either students of KCSE, KCSE candidates last year. The Cabinet Secretary for Education is going to be releasing the results of the KCSE today, and you're all wondering, so what time? We don't know, but when the CS does it, we'll obviously cross over live. NTV will bring you the event live when the CS goes, but it's not yet there.
It's 9:30 a.m. but Kenya. So tutajua.
We are ready to cross. Sawa. In the meantime, we continue our conversation with some of the guests here. Kazmal, you have the mic now, and we talked to you earlier. There's a whole issue of many young people just participating to fill the numbers, because some of them will just, maybe you're mobilized, you go in there and you look at candidate Janet or candidate Eric, and you feel Jano Linipatia 200, like you had said earlier, Eric Linipatia 50, so I give the highest bidder, Jano. What else should the youth look out for? How else would the youth engage meaningfully with the 2027 election?
I think it's a very potent question, and I'll answer it maybe two-pronged, in the sense that all these liberators, the people that we nowadays hail as people who worked in the liberation movements, they seem to understand something which they never say. They never acknowledge publicly. They took advantage of the moments that sprang them to publicity. Yes, there's no way you can be relevant for 30 years if you are not always taking opportunity. Ideology. You want to tell me the ideology of 1992 is still relevant right now? No. You find a moment and you're consistently finding that. But as young people, which I think is the audacity of hope. Most of us are not doing this. We're not doing this. Nobody went to the street saying that they want to be an MP. At some point last year, I thought I wanted to be an MP in 2027. I don't. Right now, that's why I think I'm more relaxed and I'm taking a more pragmatic position. I say this because if you see how these politicians behave, you realize there's no hesabu for young people. I can tell you, I was in a political gathering in ODM, where politicians in the party saying, we have some Gen Zs we need to inspire. And the Gen Zs they were saying is Akina Sifuna and Akina Babu. And I am in that meeting, and Alionya is that meeting. And when you say Gen Z in Kenya, it's me, my nickname, the babies in my estate, they say Gen Z. But the political class will do anything to preserve itself. That's why I was even saying the chicanery. Now, we have to decide as young people, this is the direction we will take, because you think you're fighting the same war until, and I'll use my own example, you think that, Secretary General bad here, Secretary General bad, until in the morning he goes, takes a photo op with your party leader, then in the afternoon goes and takes a photo op with Mama Aida Odinga, and then how it appeases the broad masses. So as young people in this conversation of nation building, where are we? Who can we say, for example, because we tried forming a party, and I have to take the blame. Morara Kebaso tried changing the country's attitude towards campaign financing. Everybody called him a project, everybody called him what, and now that space, when it's bad if Morara does it, but if Maraga does it, hey, the man who oversighted the most corrupt judiciary. If Matiang'i says, I have not too rich, I will contribute from the people, but if Morara, a young man, says that, oh, we bash him, we only project one, yes, when he goes around doing this thing that he was doing, Vampire Diaries, we said, natukua pesa, mefungua pay bill, then he stopped. Who has ever done that? I've seen very shabby attempts. Old men who don't wanashika camera hivi. Oh, I'm here outside this building and nothing is going on here. Bora alikuwa anakaa hizo vitu angles, anaruka hivi kwa Prado, yani unacheki unasema, lazima tuvotu mtu out. Who's sustaining that momentum for us? Sasa mimi nasema,
because they were told Gen Z is a state of so they were like, okay, let's put it to practice.
Yes. So personally I've said, seizing full advantage of this moment when there's this bit of attention. People pay for this. People pay for this nonsense. Personally, I remember last time I was put on a front page of a daily, myself and Raila Odinga, and we were called betrayers of Gen Z. There are people who would pay hundreds of thousands for that. While we still have the attention, I need to be able to say, let me sit with Korir, let me sit with Alionya, and sit with Mark, and even my sister from DCP, and Wanja Wairimu as a researcher. You know, the thing that people don't know is that we think they're not activists because we don't know who focuses on the social justice movements. If you were active participant in last year's protest, you will know that the social justice movements are a tool of political organization that, if well empowered, could be the change that we're looking for in the country. However, when she comes here and she says that she disagrees with me, instead of taking that L and saying, okay, where can I consider this? I say that wanakula pesa ya NGOs. There are people who are doing that, yes, but there are certain voices. Wanjake is not a fringe researcher. She's a respectable voice in the social space. Personally, I watch her podcast to glean insights, or to glean political insight, even to shape my journey here in ODM. I listen to a certain degree of madness, which hosts these things. However, we've been balkanized in such a way that we cannot work together. And this is the thing that the older politicians have learned. And it's a thing which, as young people, we'll have to learn and say, Sawa, I respect the position you have, respect the position you've taken. However, can we have some bare minimums? That's why Raila knew that he bet on the system. You know, I had one of the panelists say that abstinence is also a vote, and I was wondering from their party, you know, the people who abstained from voting for their party in power, a deliberate abstinence, were more than the people who voted for it. But Raila knew that as flawed as the systems would be, we have to show that we have faith. He went to court. He knew the courts could be bribed. He knew that the judges would have been bought. He knew, but he always tested those systems. How can we fill the system with people who will test it to the point where the system will have nothing but the option to work? That's how I'm looking at it.
You have something?
Not a question, actually. Well, more a reflection. Something about the things that we are blaming as young people, and we've talked about them, and absolutely valid, right? There's a lot of faith in, lack of faith in institutions, whether it's the IEBC. We can have the debate of whether, have they really done anything currently to warrant this? And we're talking about the current IEBC, not previous ones. We can have that debate later, but the fact remains, there's a lot of lack of faith.
Absolutely.
Fine. There's the disillusionment where Rimo spoke about, also very true, coming off the back of, feeling hopeful and then, realizing, oh my God, I could come outside to fight for my rights and die. Valid. But then there's still the fact that as much as the game seems to have shifted, it has stayed largely the same. And the same methods of galvanizing people of all ages that worked in 1990 are essentially still working. It's tribal blocks being formed. It's bringing your people closer and they bring their people closer, and we're seeing that. So even if we talk about, for example, the voter registration drives in Luo Nyanza that have been very successful, it's a result of broad base, right? So then young people are not exiting the chat in that sense.
Right.
We're still playing the game as was. So then I'm thinking, what next? What's the actual fix here? And do we want an actual fix? Because if we're susceptible to the same games and the same strategies that have worked since the beginning of time, then it says that we're no different than any other generation.
We're leaving the game, which is almost the question I wanted to ask next, which is if all of you here today, especially those of you who are in political parties, 2027, if you, and I'm asking this broadly, but if young people and young people in politics fail to influence structures and policy and leadership within political parties in 2027, what does that say about the future of the democracy in Kenya? Does it mean now it forces you to say, okay, the way Warimu hinted, sometimes it takes time before you build your own thing. But let's just look at that scenario, because right now there's optimism, right? You're like, we're young people in political parties. If 2027 comes and for whatever reason, the said political parties all fail young people in some way or another, I'm just asking this as a, by the way, what then happens to the future of democracy in Kenya? How do you then take stock and say, this is what we need to do next? Put yourself in that 2027. Let's start with you and go around.
Okay, I think let me speak as someone from ODM. I believe that that will not happen for ODM because we have stamped our authority so loudly. If you see someone like Kasmuel can stand here and say, I can tell the SG to go, and people and even the media can pick on that narrative and interview it, it means that as young people, we are doing something in the party and will not allow anyone to hoodwink us. And there's someone from UDA here, and UDA is doing grassroots elections, I think on Saturday, if I'm not wrong. So people in UDA should open their eyes to understand who is going to be elected as a grassroots mobilizers for the ward, for the constituency, because it will start from there. If they fail there, then definitely we have already failed in 2027. So I am imploring them to be very active on the 10th, people to come up and vote for their people. As ODM also, and let me take this opportunity to ask our leaders, especially the party structures, instead of sitting down and asking for an NDC, and in fact, if that NDC is made, it will consume the people who are asking for it than even the people who are quiet. What are you doing to ensure that we go and increase the voter registration of people in ODM? And maybe give the confidence of ODM members in our ODM zones that this is still the party. Why are we not doing that? That you are asking for an NDC for you to be a party leader, and there's a party leader there. Why can't you give him the respect that he deserves, support him, and tell him, look, we need to go to Nyanza and increase the number of voters, the number of members in ODM. We need to go to Coast and increase the number of voters in ODM. We need to go to our zones that are drifting away and tell them that ODM is still the party. Yeah? Because I have always told my fellow Gen Zs, if anything, we will win or lose elections in the party primaries. DCP will do their grassroots, ODM will do their grassroots. Who is elected as a delegate, who is elected as a ward representative, as a professional representative, will determine the outcome in 2027. So if we sit aside and allow the political parties, these old people, to continue the narrative and elect themselves at the grassroots level, we will not have power. So we are looking at UDA, what they are doing. ODM, we are living here, and by the way, our ODM members should not relax. So wakika kwa hizo tables, they should ask themselves, are people with them? If you are not with the people, we are going to really demoralize you at the ground level. Tunataka mkuja kwa ground, sisi ndio tuko kwa ground. Watu wanakaa wanajiuliza, SG anasema hii, mtu mwingine anasema hii. It is not what Baba would have loved to hear. If today you asked me the question of agents, I was a blogger in 2022. And when we were blogging, other people were being paid, and as we were not being paid, tunaambiwa, unajua Baba atuangi pesa. In 2027, we will look people in the eye and tell them, in 2022, you told us that Baba did not remove money, and clearly money was being given out, and hamkuwa mnalao inatufikia. Sahizi, you are making the issue of agents to be a priority rather than looking at what do the members of ODM want. Because I can tell you here today that the ODM members have not healed from the fact that they have lost their party leaders. The ODM members have not healed from the fact that they need a party direction, and it is not coming out clearly because leaders have refused to sit on a table and disagree to agree. So I am calling on young people to take heart in the grassroots election of political parties, because once we have youth representatives at the grassroots level, even in 2027, we'll have a say. You will be there to stand for someone to be given the party ticket kama ameshinda uchaguzi. Kama ni yeye watu wamekuja wakampigia kura akuwe governor representative.
Hold there. You're absolutely right. And you're right, won or lost an election is essentially, done at those party primaries. But we just have to take not even a break, but just go over to Eldoret, where Macharia Mbogwa is on ground. We're about to release KCSE results. Let's listen in to what's happening there. I think we'll be going live at around 10 a.m. But Macharia is on ground. Good morning, Macharia.
Well, good morning indeed. And here it is at Chebisas Boys High School, where anytime from now the CS should be coming in with the whole team or from the ministry who are supposed to make the official announcement of the KCSE 2025 examination. Remember, this was the third last cohort of the 844 system, and there's a lot of expectation around it. Definitely, as you can see around, it's a beehive of activities since morning. The announcement was made yesterday, quite a move that everyone was expecting. The results could be announced yesterday after the president was briefed about the results. But well, today morning they decided here in Eldoret, and it's quite a privilege again, considering this is not the first time the results have been announced here in Eldoret. National examinations have been announced previously at Moi Girls High School here. But well, we are talking of 996,000 candidates who were examined across the country, and close to one of the biggest examinations, with at least very few people or few issues around it, which involved close to 400, above 400 people who were caught with a few cases here and there during the examination period. Remember, we are talking of a whole team that was deployed on the ground. Over 10,000 center managers, you're talking of invigilators, you're talking of security, and even points where they were added over 25 containers, new containers, something that has not happened before. But well, there's a bigger question around it. Why the examinations are over the season? The past few years, the examination has not been always announced. Normally, we've seen it being announced in December, which was quite a surprise to most Kenyans. But this time round, it is a move that has gone back to January. The usual, quite the usual, since beginning with the 8044 system, where we are used to the results coming in January. Well, that's a question that I would wish to pose to a few members of the executive here in Uasin Gishu County from Kupet who have joined me in. That is Mr. Arap Belat here, who's the chairperson. Quite an interesting day, another privilege to us in Gishu County. Thank you for speaking with NTV. Maybe you can just tell us what was unique about this year's examination period for the KCSE candidates.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say this is a very unique setup of releasing an examination, and we want to thank the ministry for ensuring that it came to the county of the president, county 027. We normally call it county 001. The most unique thing about these results is that for the first time last year, the KCSE students clicked at the 1 million mark. The candidates who are doing examination for the first time, and it means the teachers who are being involved in marking examination exercise add a bigger load and duty. That is why it has spilled over. I also believe that now that the ministry the curriculum is being transitioned to CPE, we are receiving the first students for senior secondary this year. It must have involved the technocrats in the Ministry of Education and NEC a lot of things. It is not a simple thing transitioning to CPE. And I also understand that as teachers we were retooled. Most of the December holiday we normally go to mark examination, but this time round we had to retool teachers to know how to deal with the new curriculum. That's why it took a lot of time. Now the timelines were changed. Otherwise, we want to say thank you very much for the ministry for ensuring that the release is done here in Western.
Mr. Arap Belat, just one last question. Maybe the marking is said to have ended in mid-December. Why wait all the way till January to announce the results?
I have told you it's about the capacity. I believe, where I believe, because I'm an ICT teacher and I understand more about statistics. Now that the numbers were about 1 million, and again the workload for the ministry technocrats, whom I believe they are still the same, and they were dealing with the CPE changeover. Remember the same NEC. Remember the same NEC we are dealing with the JSS examination for the first time. Grade 9, the grade 9 examination, and some of the examiners, some of the teachers were marking grade 9 and also marking KCSE, some of them. So we expected this to go this way because it was something we were ready, and it's something we expected because of the workload of both the NEC and even those ones who are involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Biwott, Mr. Belat, and Mr. Kipto. We'll still be speaking with them after the official announcement of the results. Remember, the Cabinet Secretary for Education is expected any minute from now. They were saying at 9 a.m., but right now we are being told the team will be leaving the state launch here in Eldoret and are headed here. It's like 10 kilometers away. That is at Chebisas Boys High School here in Eldoret. While we'll be monitoring what will be unique for our viewer back there. We'll be monitoring what will be unique about this announcement, what will be unique about the grading system. And this one will be coming live from here in Eldoret, will be coming live at NTV. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, Latif and the team, back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much. That's Mashari Mbogwa live from Eldoret. We're expecting the release of the results of KCSE. Obviously, for a lot of candidates, I know it's a very, very tense time, but we do wish you all the best. Also, a reminder, it is not the end all be all, okay? So I'm hoping for, a lot of joy, a lot of around the country, but also a lot of support as these candidates essentially transition into the next phase of their lives. Let's get back into our digital and in studio baraza, I would call it that, around young people and politics and the readiness for 2027. Rosalind had just given us, essentially your hack, because we've said, we could say it's about trust in institutions or the disillusionment, but we do need to do something. Your fix, you're saying, elections are happening at the party primaries. That's essentially where it's won or lost. And I quite like that. I'd like to hear everybody else's fix. And let me start with Jane, and then we'll just go around to Mark and Brian and Wairimu, and then back to Casmuel. Essentially, what is the fix for getting young people engaged in politics? How do we get them to realize that we do have to engage in one way or the other?
Please pardon the question.
Sorry, what's the fix for getting young people engaged in politics and what's the fix for getting young people engaged in politics? Let me just leave it at that.
Okay, so if young people don't want to join political parties, there are ways that they can participate and influence the 2027 general election, like policy advocacy. They can also do voters' education and mobilization in grassroots. And also, we have the advantage of access to information. You can also use your social media handles to communicate and to tell the leaders what you want as young people to shape the narrative of where we want to get. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Okay, so I'll respond in very two quick questions. But before that, to the KCSE candidate who perhaps is feeling tense, they should check Janet's part of the video when she was mimicking Trump. I really loved that part. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So I'll say I will give a much nuanced response to this. The politicians, those who have been in the game, when they think about young people and politics, they don't think about these things in very complex ways, the way we are thinking about primaries, whatever, and all this. They think around the simple things, and in a much nuanced manner, I think Kasmil has raised them. One is that while we were our greatest force, we are also our greatest enemies, in the sense that we don't like each other. Most young people, when they see even Kasmil talking, they say they don't like the way even he's breathing on that microphone. Today they hear Murara Kibaso is appointed somewhere. So the politicians know that the young people, especially in politics, they are easily distracted. If I wanted to pass, say, a money bill today, if I'm the president, and the young people, I feel that they are going to be contentious around it, I just have to find maybe a celebrity couple, tell them to fake some breakup, and you'll see most young people even forget about that thing. So it's back to even the simple things, forget even the complex things. Secondly, I will want to say this, and this perhaps will be my last response, particularly to the activists, those who are on the activist side of politics. I want to say that politics normally follows a certain terrain, okay? And the political problems, as Kamusal said, need political solutions. And even if you look into ancient revolutions, like, the Indonesian one in 1998, the Soweto uprising, etc., and all that, at the end of the day, politics do not work from decentralized structures. And if those within the political game, I told you, politics has no relation with morals. They don't care about what the activists are doing. In fact, by all means, they will only work with activists if it's a coincidence. So I'll lastly say to the young people, let's embrace each other. If you see Kasmul, there is an ODM, let's embrace him. He's out there. We cannot all be in that space. If you see Mark Oko is in government today, if you see him, let's just embrace each other. This constant fighting makes us, in fact, I'll finish by just saying this. That's the last thing. I have an MP friend of mine. and he told me in 2022 election, he had a competitor who was so focused on the young people, and he used to just laugh at this guy. And when it came to the last minute, he had sponsored a night brew, where the young people are drinking alcohol, and those people drank so much till the young people forgot to come and vote for the election. So it's the simple things sometimes than all these complex things we're saying, primaries, whatever, and we are not even supporting each other. Thank you.
So, Brian?
Thank you. It's okay. For me, I would say, the political class, actually, it's aligning for their own self-interest, and they are pushing for that. And for the youth, they must shake the water underneath. And that, like my friend here, Mark, Kasmuel, Alionya, and me, we must shake the broad-based and make sure that our voice is heard enough. And then for those in opposition, like Ken Babu and others, and Angel Budhia, to push for their opposition, so their voice be heard in the other side. So I think it's at a time that the young people in the political parties, and in those political parties, whether in government or in opposition, to make sure their voice is heard, and also to take effective march to ensure that kind of the policies and even the program that they propose is to ensure that the young people are inclusive of it. Because I find it so weird that most of the time when these political classes are making their own issues, they know one factor, which is their strength. To the bare minimum that Kasmuel has said. They can come together regardless of their different opinion, regardless of how bitter they are. And that's something that we must learn from them. And if we cannot learn from it, then again, I think we don't have that fruit of Holy Spirit or the gift of Holy Spirit that is called discernment. We must also know how to discern things. Because sometimes we push things personal, we make it emotive to a level that we cannot even allow our judgment to be very clear. So we must stop this bias. We must also be conscious in terms of whether do we want this country to move forward. Because eventually, at a certain point, I believe, and I have that vision, that we, the friends that we are here at the moment, and you also, at some point, will be your leaders. And at that time when it comes, we'll be the one reckoning for this country. And we will not wish the same young people as us at that time discussing the same issues that we're discussing now. Because I believe in human evolution, and even in the aspect of brain evolution, because we cannot repeat and do the same things over and over, because times are changing, economical classes are changing, because we used to understand that during the time that barter trade was there, at the moment we are living on digital excesses. And going forward, I don't know what we'll be living. Maybe otherwise we'll be having aliens. So we must come together, we must think. And for the change, for the leadership and policy making, it comes from the point of information. And this information, again, goes one-on-one with the culture of the country, the values of the country, because it must be a Kenyanism way of doing things. So I would love the young people to embrace that and also encourage the policies that will change this country, not just talking. We must also have memorandas that can change this country. And we have MPs who represent young people in parliament who are nominated. We can push things for them and things will change. Thank you so much.
All right. Wairimo?
I am paraphrasing, but there's a certain philosopher who says, we study history not to understand it, but to change things. So, I'm listening to my friend there over the corner, and this really rigid insistence that, politics is not about morality, it's about self-interest. You just have to accept it. And I'm just like, that's why what you're essentially going to have going forward is, youth tokens like him and a rather disengaged youth going about their life trying to survive, and a rather disengaged youth whose relationship with the state, I don't know who mentioned earlier the idea about like a broken social contract. So we're going to have a youth that perceives... we're going to have a youth that basically perceives the state as a parasite you just have to live with. You have to pay taxes, you have to whatever. But, the things that ideally you should receive, like, whatever social protections, access to healthcare, access to education, you're just going to learn to have to live without it. And at that point in time, you're just going to disengage. But basically, that was just my response to him. I think we just have a very big value difference there. But my answer to what you asked earlier about what I think we, as young people, the fix, we want political actors who actually listen. People aren't asking for much. People are just trying to survive. People are just asking for a more people-centered administration. more people-centered administration that, for instance, tries to enact progressive taxation. Instead of broadening like indirect taxes affecting like everyday items, why don't we look at like progressive land taxation, for instance? We're asking for like more social protection. Again, just try to tax capital rather than reduce capitation on university students. Right. It's just basically that. The solution is simple. The fix is simple. It's just actually listen to the populace.
Just listen.
Yeah.
Kwani ni kina nani walifanya serikali of 2024 broad-based ikue? Sometimes what are you asking us if we are ready? What is our fix? We are the ones who are in charge of this formation, and sometimes I think for a long time we had lost the sight of this issue. There's a time we used to sit here and we would say, tomorrow there's no work. The only other person who could do that was Raila Odinga. And I think that's why we even had a very beautiful relationship, because a lot of the people who are around him, the people who are purporting to be the leaders, and certain people who've been given mandate, they didn't wield that. The reason why Baba and I and the few young people who we were together around with is Baba saw. He understood, because the year before he had just done what we had done. We're just taking it a notch higher. So we have to know that we are the key stakeholders as young people. I am a stakeholder, so I have a say in how the management of the broad-based arrangement works, because it is part of how, if I am going to say that through the broad-based youth front, I want the re-election of this president. Anyone who jokes around with this formation is my enemy, because how will I go and tell Wairimo, I understand that you disagree vehemently with my position. However, I had said, when we went together, we said we wanted to reform police and ensure that victims of police brutality are, one, acknowledged by the state. There's some legislative framework about it, and acknowledgement and some sort of financial reprieve. While we might not recover lives, that is actually the one pain point that I have. Anyone who is seeking to scuttle this part of the agenda becomes my enemy. I don't care how you think about whatever, debt, your re-election. If you're getting in the way of victims of police brutality and state extrajudicial excesses by the state and getting some sort of financial reprieve or compensation, their legal framework, you become my enemy. So now people ask me, what position do you have? Am I not the person who occasioned the formation of this government? Are these not the young people who ensured that the government started listening? They tried. These legacy politicians have tried. They have never come close to what we did last year. So we give political direction because we changed the trajectory of this country. So we are saying, if the young people say that they are ready for 2027, you don't ask, we just tell you, we will give you direction. The way people used to say, Baba has read the constitution, it is right. If the young people have said, we are ready for 2027, just the same way nobody saw the way we would come in 24, that's how it would be. But in more serious matters, the people who are current officials of parties, and personally people know that I am at variance with the Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement. I will sustain this campaign because politicians of that ilk want to use young people as a constituent, as a bargaining tool. Now we are saying here, if the president wants to reach young people, you don't have to go through anyone. Come to the population directly, then we will say, we wanted agenda 3, 4, 5. Nobody will bring the president 200,000 votes. That's what I would say. We as young people are the ones who are going to deliver that vote to anyone.
Thank you.
That's where we landed.
Sorry. There's people on X who... Marvin did not even get a chance to speak, and he's finally gotten the mic. Jack, so if we could just get 1 minute. Sawa. Very quickly, Marvin, your thoughts on this entire conversation. Wanja, Angel, I'm so sorry, because of time, we'll not even be able to hear from you. But this is an ongoing conversation, so we will pick it up and continue talking about young people and 2027 politics. But let's hear from Marvin Mabonga, who is a political aspirant and a young man as well.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be here. My name is Marvin Mabonga. I'm vying for a political position in Kimilili, come 2027. That is for the member of parliament. But of course, as the questions, as you have asked whether the Kenyan youth are very ready, I can honestly tell you for free that the young people of this nation are very ready. I'm part of the United Green Movement Party, a party whose leader is the former Chief Justice, David Kenani Maraga. And I can tell you for free that recently, last year, we had an opportunity of hosting over 300 young people from different counties for the youth convention. And these young people are vying for the political parties. So it's very clear that the young people are very ready. You've seen what is happening, especially with the civic engagement, the youth conventions, and of course, even the voter registration. Even as much as people think that the young people are not registering, people are registering out there. It's only that the government wants to peddle a very different narrative, a very negative narrative, claiming that the young people are not registering. But what I can let Kenyans know is that once the IEBC has rolled out the mass voter registration, we are going to see these numbers are rising. And so even as much as we say the young people are very ready, I'll be so worried if the young people will trust in these legacy political parties. For instance, like ODM and Jubilee, where the party primaries actually don't take place. Rather, political friends, they do award themselves the party tickets. And so any young person who is in those political parties, I can honestly, I can let them know that they're not going to be given chances because these parties have been there for a very long time. They have never done that. You saw what happened in Mombasa County during the gubernatorial election. You saw what happened in Kisumu. You should not be there.
If you're not,
even as much as we are ready,
you're not gonna get an opportunity.
Even as much as.
Yeah,
Marvin,
we've got to conclude here. We thank you for your contribution. Asante sana for this, and thank you very much to everybody who's joined us on the X Space and our panelists in the studio. There's a lot that we've discussed. I mean, we are going to have these conversations throughout this year. Yeah. Into next year, into seeing what needs to happen in terms of just thinking for the next election. We'll be crossing over into Eldoret shortly. What we know is that even the president has been briefed about the release of the KCSE results at Eldoret State Lodge. In fact, the president has tweeted that he was meeting with the education stakeholder, the leadership of the Education Ministry and the Kenya National Examinations Council. The results will be released shortly by the Education CS, Julius Ogamba. The president says, well, from what he has been briefed, there were 270,000 who attained C+ and above in that election. I mean, not election, that examination.
Well, default setting.
There's a default setting, right? So out of 93,000, about 27% actually have gotten that pass mark to join university. It's a bit higher than, we usually get around that 25, 27%, but always less than 30%. But yeah, we'll be crossing over into that. Thank you very much for joining us today. Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time on NTV and Nation FM. Of course, Brian and Claudia will be taking over on Nation FM, on NTV. We'll continue our broadcast. We'll be crossing over into Eldoret shortly with Macharia Mwangi giving us a brief, and then the Education CS will be announcing the results. See you tomorrow, or no?
Monday.
Have a lovely day. Eric Latif, Janet Bogwa, and Mariam Bishar.